Marcus is sitting in the car, engine off, hands still on the wheel. The house is right there, porch light on. Somebody already moved the curtain to see if that's him pulling up, and he is not ready to go inside yet. He's been sitting there for 4 minutes, maybe 5, not because something's wrong. Nothing's wrong, that's what he'll tell you. He's just collecting himself. Because the second that door opens, everybody in that house needs something from him. His energy, his patience, his everything's fine face. So he takes one breath, long one, the kind you take when you're about to lift something heavy and you don't want anybody to see you strain. He checks himself in the rear view, rubs his face like he's wiping something off that nobody else can see. And he gets ready to say the same 4 words he said for 30 years. I'm good. Now cut to a bedroom across town. Different house, different generation, same kind of tired. Jayden's laying in the dark, phone lighting up his face blue. It's almost 2 a.m. He should be asleep. He knows he should be asleep. But the scroll doesn't stop, and everybody online looks like they got the whole thing figured out, healed, rich, glowed up, protecting their peace in some country he can't afford to visit. He's got the language for what he's feeling. He knows the word for it. He could spell it out in a caption if he wanted to, but knowing the word doesn't make the weight get up off his chest. He opens a message, types something, deletes it, types it again. Finally, he just sends it plain. I'm tired. 2 black men, 2 generations, 2 completely different ways of surviving the same country. Black Gen X men were taught to survive by staying quiet. Black Gen Z men were taught to survive by speaking up. But make no mistake, both of them are carrying weight. They just learn to carry it differently. Stay with me. This is gonna take a minute, and it's gonna hit some places you weren't ready for. You ever notice how certain men can sit at a cookout, laughing loud, cup in hand, cracking jokes about everybody in the yard, and you'd never know that same man buried his father 4 months ago and hasn't cried once? That's not an accident. That's training. Marcus was a boy once. Little Marcus, maybe 7, maybe 8, skinned his knee or got his feelings stepped on by some other kid, and he cried the way kids are supposed to cry. And somewhere in that moment somebody, a father, an uncle, a grandmother who loved him fiercely and didn't know another way, looked at him and said, "Stop all that crying. Be a man about it. Ain't nobody gone feel sorry for you out here." And here's the thing nobody tells you, that wasn't cruelty. That was preparation. Because the world that boy was about to walk into was not going to be gentle with him, and the people raising him knew it. They'd already lived it, so they armored him up early. Better a hard boy than a dead one. Better a quiet man than a broken one that the world could see coming from a mile away. Now hold on, let me paint the whole picture, because it's bigger than one moment in a kitchen. Picture the family cookout, men laughing loud by the grill, dominoes slapping the table, somebody's radio playing something from '94. Loud, alive, but listen close. Nobody's talking about what's actually going on inside them. The laughter is the conversation. The jokes are the therapy. Ain't nobody signing up for a session. They're getting it in 15-second bursts between your team trash and pass me another plate. Picture the church parking lot after service. Everybody dressed sharp, everybody saying I'm blessed and highly favored, and half of them are barely holding it together financially, emotionally, spiritually. But blessed is the answer. Blessed closes the conversation before it opens. Picture the barbershop. Same chair, same mirror, same brothers who have been coming through that door for 20 years. And in that chair, men will talk about everything: politics, sports, women, money, everything except the thing that's actually eating at them. But watch closely. The jokes in that shop. Half of them are confessions wearing a disguise. Picture Marcus at work, some fool disrespecting him in a meeting, and he has to sit there with a straight face because he knows exactly what happens to a black man who reacts the way he actually wants to react. So he swallows it, smiles if he has to, handles it professionally. Drives home with his jaw tight, Picture the funeral. Marcus is the one everybody leans on. He's setting up chairs, driving people to the repast, making sure Auntie's got a plate. Nobody's checking on him. Everybody assumes he's fine because he's the one holding everybody else up. Picture the kitchen table late at night. Bills spread out. Silence. Just him and the numbers and the weight of being the one who's supposed to make it work. That's the part nobody talks about. Marcus didn't go quiet because he had nothing to say. He went quiet because silence got rewarded. Every single time. Control got rewarded. Usefulness got rewarded. Endurance got rewarded. Nobody clapped for the man who said, "I can't handle this right now." But everybody respected the man who showed up anyway. Let me bring this back around to what that actually built inside him. For a lot of Black Gen X men, emotional control didn't stay a lesson, it became protection. Silence became armor he put on every morning like a work uniform. Humor became camouflage, a way to let some pressure out without ever actually opening the valve all the way. Work became the proof, the only proof some of them ever got that they mattered, that they were worth something. Responsibility stopped being something he did and became who he was, and asking for help. That started feeling less like a request and more like a confession that he'd failed. Rest felt like guilt. Pain became something you managed alone, in the dark, quietly, the way you'd handle a leak in the roof. You don't announce it, you just go fix it before anybody notices it's raining inside. And you can't talk about this without talking about what was happening around him, while all this was being built into him. He came up in the shadow of the civil rights era, close enough to feel its echo, close enough to hear the older folks talk about what it cost. He watched the crack epidemic tear through neighborhoods and watched mass incarceration take men he knew, men who looked like his uncles, his cousins, sometimes his own father. He watched factories close and watched hard work stop being enough to guarantee anybody made it. He grew up under the weight of respectability, dress right, speak right, don't give them a reason, and under the exhausting math of twice as good, which really just means your mistakes cost more than everybody else's. And a whole lot of Black boys in that era got adultified early, told to be the man of the house at 12, told to be strong before they'd even had the chance to be soft. Childhood got shortened, and manhood got rushed in to fill the space. Now I need you to hear this part clearly because I'm not here to make Marcus out to be broken. His armor worked. It got him through rooms that were not built with his well-being in mind. It kept him employed. It kept him providing. It kept him alive, honestly, in situations where the wrong emotion at the wrong time could have cost him a lot more than a bad mood. But the same armor that protected that boy is getting heavy on that man. And he's been wearing it so long he forgot it comes off. Now let's talk about Jayden. Jayden didn't grow up with a landline and a curfew enforced by a porch light. Jayden grew up with a phone in his hand basically since birth. Cameras everywhere. Screenshots as receipts. Hashtags as history. He watched police violence footage as a kid, not as breaking news he heard about secondhand, but as videos autoplaying in his feed between a meme and a music clip. He grew up with language Marcus never had access to at that age. Anxiety, trauma, boundaries. Burnout, emotional availability, toxic masculinity, healing, therapy. Jayden can use all these words fluently. He can diagnose a bad situation in real time with vocabulary his father's generation didn't have easy access to. But, and this is important, knowing the name of the weight is not the same as the weight being gone. He can say anxiety and still feel his chest tighten walking into a room. He can say boundaries and still feel guilty every single time he sets one. He can say burnout and still have to clock in tomorrow because rent doesn't care how tired he is. Let me show you his world a little closer. Picture Jayden at 2 a.m. scrolling, which is where we started this whole thing, watching people his age who seem to have it figured out. Healed, successful, glowing. And he doesn't know that half of what he's looking at is curated, cropped, and just as performed as anything his father's generation ever put on. Picture Jayden at work, trying not to come off as difficult while also trying to protect the little piece he's got left. That's a tightrope. Say too little and you get walked over. Say too much and you get labeled as not a team player, which, for a young black man, can carry a weight his coworkers never have to think about. Picture Jayden at a family gathering, trying to explain burnout to an uncle who hears burnout and thinks excuse. The uncle's not wrong to be skeptical based on what he survived, but he's not right either, because Jayden's exhaustion is real, just shaped differently. Picture Jayden in the barbershop, same shop Marcus might have come up in, except now it's a different generation in the chairs calling his generation soft, not knowing that soft is often just honest out loud. Picture Jayden wanting to sit down with a therapist but hesitating, because some part of him still wonders if needing help means something's wrong with him. That old programming didn't skip his generation completely, it just got remixed. Picture him setting a boundary with someone he loves and still feeling like he owes somebody an apology for it. Now hold on, because some folks hear Gen Z talk about mental health and think they invented struggle. No, they did not invent struggle. They inherited struggle with Wi-Fi. That's the part that gets missed. Jayden isn't soft because he names his pain. He's watched, recorded, compared, and judged basically every hour he's awake, and he's still trying to be honest inside all that noise. That takes its own kind of nerve. Here's the hidden psychology of it. Black Gen Z men often learn to name pain, but they grew up under constant visibility that Marcus's generation never had to survive. They're seen more, but not always heard more. They speak up more, but that doesn't guarantee anybody's actually listening. They reject the old silence, but they still feel pressure to prove themselves, just on a stage with cameras running. And layer on top of that, the economy he's trying to build a life in. Student debt that doesn't forgive itself. A gig economy that calls itself flexible but rarely calls itself stable. A pandemic that isolated him during years that were supposed to be about connection. Cancel culture, where one bad post can follow you for years. Digital masculinity, where even how you grieve or how you love gets judged in a comment section. He's expected to be successful, emotionally intelligent, socially aware, physically fit, financially stable, and mentally healthy, all at the same time, all in public, all while people are watching to see if he slips. That's a lot of weight for a young man to carry. Even with better words for it. Now let's put them together. Same cookout, different chairs. Or maybe it's a kitchen table after dinner, plates cleared, everybody still sitting because nobody wants to be the first one to get up. Jayden says he's overwhelmed. Marcus says, you just gotta keep going. And right there, right in that little exchange, is 30 years of two different survival manuals colliding. Jayden feels dismissed, like his pain just got waved off. Marcus feels disrespected, like this boy is questioning the very thing that kept Marcus alive. You see where I'm going with this? They're not really arguing about laziness. They're not really arguing about softness. They're arguing from two completely different rule books, and neither one of them wrote the rules. The world wrote the rules and handed each generation a different copy. Marcus hears Jayden's openness and thinks, this generation gives up too easily. Jayden hears Marcus's silence and thinks, this generation refuses to heal. But it's deeper than that. Marcus was never taught the language of emotional pain. Nobody handed him the words, so how's he supposed to use them? Jayden was never taught to swallow pain the way Marcus was, so why would he reach for a tool he was never given? Marcus survived by swallowing it. Jayden survives by naming it. One says, keep going. The other says, I'm tired. One says, don't let them see you sweat. The other says, why do I have to pretend I'm not sweating? One says, that's life. The other says, but does it have to be? That's the part nobody talks about. Black Gen X men might see boundaries as weakness, because where he comes from, the man who said, "I can't," got left behind. Black Gen Z men might see endurance as avoidance, because where he comes from, silence looks like a wound nobody ever tended to. Marcus might ask, "Why you telling everybody your business?" Jayden might ask, "Why did you suffer in silence for so long?" Both questions come from love. Both questions come from fear. Neither one of them is wrong to ask it. Now let's slow all the way down and go inside Marcus for a minute. His silence is not empty. I need you to understand that. It's not a void. It's not a man with nothing going on underneath. It is learned protection, built brick by brick starting when he was a child. He remembers being a boy and crying, and instead of comfort, he got correction. He remembers that the only time he really got praised was when he was useful, when he carried something, fixed something, handled something. He remembers becoming the man of the house before he'd even finished being a kid himself. He remembers watching the older men in his life work through pain silently, laugh through pressure like it was nothing, and slowly disappear inside themselves over the years, present in the room, gone somewhere else entirely. He remembers a time he needed somebody and nobody came, and some part of him decided right then not to need anybody like that again. His fears run quiet, but they run deep. He fears being a burden. He fears losing respect the moment he shows a crack. He fears needing somebody who might not show up because it's happened before. And more than anything, he fears that if he stops moving, everything he's buried for 30 years is going to catch up to him all at once, and he won't survive the flood. Here's the way I'd put it to you. Marcus's silence is not a wall he built because he hates people. It's a storm shelter. He built it because at some point a long time ago, the weather was too much and he needed somewhere to survive it. But here's the problem now. That shelter doesn't have any windows, and everybody around him keeps calling it strength. Now let's go inside Jayden. His openness is not weakness. Say that with me, his openness is not weakness. It's his attempt to survive honestly, in a world that never gave him the option of disappearing quietly the way it did for Marcus's generation. Everything's recorded now. Everything's seen. So Jayden learned to speak before the silence could be misread, judged, or used against him. But naming pain doesn't erase pain. He can say anxiety, and he still has to live inside it every single day. He can say boundaries, and he still feels the guilt crawl up his spine every time he disappoints somebody he loves. He can say burnout, and rent is still due on the first. He can say therapy, and healing still costs money he doesn't always have, time he can't always spare, trust he's not always sure he can offer, and courage that doesn't come cheap for anybody in any generation. His fears are just as real as Marcus's, just shaped by a different world. He fears failure not privately but publicly, where everybody can see it happen in real time. He fears being judged. He fears the strange trap of being invisible and overexposed at the exact same time, unseen by the people who matter, but watched by strangers who don't. He fears becoming emotionally numb like some of the older men he loves but can't quite reach anymore. And he fears being called soft when the truth is, he's fighting like hell not to break. Here's how I'd put it to you. Jayden doesn't carry silence the way Marcus does. Jayden carries a spotlight, and a spotlight can feel like attention. It can feel like being seen, being validated, being real. But a spotlight can also feel like heat. Now look, this has been heavy, so let me pull back for a second, because if you know Black Gen X men, you know I'm good is not just two words. It's a whole language. I'm good can mean I'm actually fine. It can mean I'm not fine at all, but I don't trust you with that information yet. It can mean don't ask me that again. It can mean I appreciate you checking on me, but this conversation is not happening today, possibly not ever. It can mean I am one bill away from losing my entire mind, but the ribs on the grill need turning, so we'll deal with my mental health some other lifetime. 47 different tones, same 2 words, and every man in that yard knows exactly which one is which without anybody explaining it. Now watch what happens when Jayden says, "I'm protecting my peace," and Marcus looks at him like the boy just announced he's moving to another country. That's funny. I'll let you laugh at that one, it's true. But behind the joke is something real. Marcus protects his dignity through silence. Jayden protects his sanity through language. Different tools. Same job, trying to make it through the day with something left of themselves at the end of it. All right, let's get serious again because this is the part that matters most. Wearing a mask for 30, 40 years does not come free. It costs something. It always costs something. For Marcus, the stress didn't disappear just because he refused to talk about it. It moved. It relocated into his body. It's sitting in his chest right now. It's in the tightness of his jaw when he's quiet. It follows him into his sleep and shows up as blood pressure numbers his doctor doesn't love, as a distance that's grown between him and the people he loves most, as an emotional shutdown he doesn't even notice happening anymore, as an exhaustion that rest doesn't seem to touch. For Jayden, the pressure doesn't disappear just because he can put a name on it. It shows up as anxiety that doesn't listen to vocabulary, as comparison that eats at him every time he opens his phone, as burnout that isolation makes worse, as overthinking that keeps him up long after he should be asleep, as a fear of failure so loud it can drown out everything he actually knows about himself, as the exhausting task of healing in public while he's still trying to survive in private. There's real science behind both of these, and I'm not gonna get lost in a textbook about it, but you should know the words exist. Chronic stress. Weathering, the way a body ages faster under sustained pressure. Allostatic load, the wear and tear stress puts on the body over time. John Henryism, working yourself into the ground trying to overcome odds that were never fair to begin with. Adultification, being treated like a grown man before you had the chance to be a boy. Masculine socialization, the whole strong black man ideal that gets handed down like an inheritance nobody asked for. But here's the plain truth underneath all that vocabulary. The body keeps receipts. The nervous system remembers everything you told it to forget. The mask might get you through today. It might get you through the whole decade even. But if you wear it too long without ever taking it off, it starts charging interest. And eventually, that bill comes due. Now here's where something shifts. Marcus and Jayden, same room again. But this time, something different happens. Marcus asks him, plain and quiet, "What does overwhelmed feel like for you?" Jayden doesn't answer right away. He's not used to being asked that by somebody from Marcus's generation, genuinely asked, not challenged. Then Jayden turns it around. He asks Marcus, "What did you do when nobody asked if you were okay?" And now it's Marcus who doesn't have an answer ready. Let that silence sit for a second. That's not an awkward silence. That's an honest one. This, right here, is where healing actually starts. Not with one generation winning the argument. Not with Marcus calling Jayden soft and Jayden calling Marcus emotionally unavailable, and everybody going home mad. It starts with both of them realizing they were trained by two completely different storms, and neither one of them chose the weather they grew up in. Marcus has something Jayden needs: endurance, discipline, patience, steadiness under pressure. The kind of survival wisdom you can't learn from a video. You can only earn it by living through something hard and coming out the other side. Jayden has something Marcus needs: language, openness, the ability to set a boundary without disappearing behind it, emotional honesty, permission to rest without treating it like a crime, permission to understand that surviving something and healing from it are not the same thing. Neither generation has the whole answer by itself. One generation learned how to survive the storm. The other generation is asking why the storm got treated like normal weather in the first place. Now sit with that. Let me lay it out plain so you can see both men clearly standing next to each other. Black Gen X men often protect themselves through silence, often show love through action more than words, often struggle to ask for help, even when they need it badly, often carry grief they've never spoken out loud to another living soul, often believe strength means you don't break down, no matter what, often feel uneasy around vulnerability, their own or anybody else's, often lean on humor as the pressure valve that keeps everything from blowing, often believe rest has to be earned before it can be taken. Black Gen Z men often protect themselves through boundaries, often show pain through language, through expression, through naming the thing out loud, often more open to therapy and to conversations about mental health than any generation before them, often carrying a digital pressure and a constant comparison that older generations never had to survive, often believe strength means being honest about pain instead of hiding it, often feel misunderstood by the very elders they still love and respect, often afraid of failing in a world that's watching and recording everything, often chasing peace before they've even had the chance to learn what peace actually requires of them. But underneath all of that, both of them want the same things. Both want respect. Both want safety. Both want love without having to perform for it. Both want to be understood, not just tolerated. Both want to stop carrying their pain completely alone. And both, if we're honest, want a future where a black man gets to just be human, not a symbol, not a warning, not a lesson, not a hashtag. Just a man, allowed to be strong and tired in the same lifetime. Let's go back to Marcus, sitting in that car one more time. He's still tired. Nothing about that's changed. The responsibility waiting inside that house hasn't gotten any lighter. But this time, before he opens the door, before he puts the mask on and says his usual 4 words, he pulls out his phone. And he types something he's never really typed to anybody. "You good?" He sends it to Jayden. Jayden looks at that message and understands exactly what it costs a man like Marcus to send it. It's not therapy language. It's not a long speech. It's not perfect. But it's a door, cracked open just a little. Jayden types back, "Not really, but I'm here." Marcus sits there in the car, looking at those words for a long moment. Then he types, "Me too." Black Gen X men and Black Gen Z men are not proof that one generation is stronger than the other. They are proof that survival changes shape depending on what it's up against. One survived by becoming quiet. One survives by refusing to stay quiet. One learned to carry the pain. One is trying to give it a name. And maybe, just maybe, healing begins the moment they stop judging each other's armor and start asking each other what made them need it in the first place. Before you go, understand this. The goal here is not to make Marcus suddenly pour out 30 years of buried feeling all at once. That's not realistic, and honestly, that's not even necessary. And the goal is not to make Jayden toughen up until he can't feel himself anymore either. That's not healing, that's just a different mask. The goal is not to erase the armor. The goal is to give that armor somewhere safe to finally rest. Because every black man, no matter what generation raised him, deserves at least one room where he doesn't have to perform strength. One room where he doesn't have to translate his pain into something more comfortable for everybody else. One room where "I'm good" doesn't have to be the final answer. So let me ask you directly. If you're a Black Gen X man, what did you learn to carry in silence? If you're Black Gen Z, what are you trying to say that the older generations don't always hear? Drop it in the comments. Gen X or Gen Z, tell us what survival looked like for you. We're listening.